I'm Levi Steele, and this is the Ordinary People Podcast. Well, everyone, I want to welcome you back to another episode of the Ordinary People Podcast with me, your host, Levi Steele. Today, I'm joined by another guest, Mr. Shane Moore. Thank you, sir, for being here today.
Oh man, happy to be here. When you sent me a message, I was pretty excited. I was like, man, I've been watching, been listening, checking you out on Instagram and watching all your stuff. So I was like, yeah, that would be really cool. So
Well, I sure do appreciate
and I
it.
name dropped you for another podcast, The Commission that Sean Benton and those guys are doing over there. I was
Oh,
like, man,
really?
you really need to check this guy out. So
Okay.
yeah, I name dropped you.
You know, I think I saw something about that. I saw that on Facebook, that podcast, because I saw where Alex McGinnis, one of my former guests on here, you know, he went on that. So
Yeah, he and I both did. I went on the week before him, and he went on the week after me. It was really phenomenal. It was great.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about those guys then.
Oh, man, they're a bunch of real estate guys. And they're really, I think Sean Benton just got his broker's license. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he just got his broker's license. But anyway, he and, man, why can't I remember his co-host's name? He and another guy are doing it together. They've been doing it together for a long time. And, doggone, he works for McElroy Realty.
Okay.
So, man, why can't I remember his name? Anyway, his name has slipped my mind, but they did a phenomenal job, and they got Caleb kind of putting all their media stuff together for me, man. It's a phenomenal conversation. It was just a lot of fun. We talked Jesus. We talked life. We talked real estate. It was a good time. It was a great time. And he's interviewing a lot of pastors, a lot of different pastors from different churches all over the place. So, like Alex and I said, he has a really unique opportunity to bring together the churches in the county and in the area because he's bringing them all to his podcast. So, I mean, it's a great opportunity. You need to think about that, you know?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, if you can make that connection, I'd love to meet him. And
Oh, yeah, man, easy. Yeah, he's laid back, super cool guy, loves the Lord, and just, always smiling, a real pleasant guy to be around. And it was awesome. It was an awesome time.
Well, good.
So maybe what y'all ought to do is have each other on your podcast. I think that'd be kind of unique.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Just have, you go hang out with him. Those guys one Wednesday. I think they do theirs every Wednesday. And you go hang out with those guys one Wednesday and let them come over here and do a podcast with you. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I've always, for me, it's been a dream to just be on somebody else's podcast, no matter what it is. And I think about it, I'm like, that's a dream of mine, but, what do I have to talk about it?
Man, life. You experiences, man. It's like you said a little bit ago. You're just like, man, we might just ask where you came from. Tell me a little bit about yourself. What was your childhood like? Where did you grow up? And those are all things that you could tell me about you. Mm-hmm. It's really no different. For me, man, I grew up dirt floor poor, seriously. And that was one of the things that was like a stigma in my life for a little while. Grew up across the street from the trailer park. We weren't in the trailer park, but we were right across the street. And the only reason we were right across the street is because my grandmother, we stayed on her property and they let us put a trailer on her property. So it was really, my dad was super sick growing up all the time. He was a severe diabetic. And back then, I mean, he was born in 1950. So diabetes back in that time and as I was growing up, man, they didn't have the technological advances that they have now in medicine and things like that. So it was really a pretty brutal endeavor. So I watched him growing up. I grew up pretty quickly just watching him because, I mean, we learned if we wanted something, man, we had to go to work. And I remember I asked my dad one time for a pair of Nike tennis shoes. I will never forget it because my dad was such a cool guy to me. He was my hero, like seriously my hero. He would have been the best man in my wedding had he still been alive when I got married. That's what kind of relationship we had. But I said, Dad, I really want a pair of Nike shoes before I go back to school. And he looked at me and he said, and I really want you to have a pair of Nike shoes. He said, but my suggestion to you would be you're going to have to get a job. You're going to have to go to work. You're going to have to make some money. Son, I just don't have the money to spend on shoes like that. I was like, Dad, they're Nike tennis shoes. Everybody's got them. He said, not everybody's got them, son. He said, you're going to go to work and get it. So I did. At 13 years old, I started working because it was evident that my dad couldn't provide that or didn't have that. So, that was kind of the way I grew up. But growing up like that has made my skill set so vast. And that's really what I think when my dad would always say, you're the jack of all trades and the master of none. There's not much I can't do. Now, I'm not really great at any one thing. And I'm okay with that. I don't need to be the master of, aerospace engineering. That's just not my jam. So for me, I just do all sorts of things, and I enjoy doing all sorts of things. And growing up in that type of environment, that's kind of what we learned how to do. I learned how to lay tile. I was doing tile when I was 13. That's my first job. I was laying ceramic tile with a tile guy who is now my stepdad. He was such a friend of the family. Even then, he was a part of the family, and it was just a really cool deal. Several years after my dad had passed, my mom remarried him, and I had the opportunity to perform the wedding ceremony. So that's, crazy full circle kind of stuff. But for me, growing up, we were in Griffin. It was rough, right across the street from Trailer Park. It was just a kind of a rough environment. And one of the most beautiful things I feel that my mom and dad were able to do for us, because they didn't have any money, was they bought some land down here in Pike County. And they bought 5 acres, and they gave $10,000 for it. My dad had a couple of good years to where he was able to work and wasn't sick all the time. And they gave $10,000 for 5 acres. Could you imagine somebody telling you today that they gave $10,000 for 5 acres? That just tells you how long ago it was. I was 13 years old. I'm 46 now, so that'll kind of help you do some math. But it was really a unique experience coming to Pike County. It was like coming to Mayberry. Everybody waved at you. Everybody was nice. They smiled. Most of the time when somebody was waving at you where I came from, it was not a good thing. It was not a pleasant thing. So those are some of the transition of life. Was just this big struggle in one aspect in Griffin. My family taught me so much, though, because they were so loving. We didn't have money, but man, we had each other, and it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I think sometimes when families do have money, that they miss the beauty of just being together. So we learn a lot in that. And I think all of those things that we face, even in poverty or whether we have wealth, we have to be very careful not to omit and just really take for granted the things that mean the most. And that was one of the things that Dad really taught us. He always spent time with us. We'd get home. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I said, we were poor. Sometimes we were fishing for food. We weren't fishing for fun. But we all loved to fish, so it worked out pretty well for us most of the time. Dad would be sitting in the driveway, and we lived close enough to the Griffin Reservoir, so it was like a 10-minute drive. So we'd drive over to the reservoir, and we'd fish, and we'd come home. But probably 2 or 3 days a week, we always had that time with just Dad just doing what he loved to do. He would be sick, man, but he would always make sure that we were able to spend some time together and do something really unique. Now, he couldn't get out in the yard all the time and play ball and stuff like that, but it was a lot of fun.
So what did y'all do instead?
So, man, my dad was a mechanic. So my dad, he had a shop, and when he wasn't working for somebody else, he worked for himself out of the shop. And man, I learned how to weld in that shop. I learned how to rebuild an engine in that shop. I learned how to rebuild a transmission in that shop. I mean, there's so many skills. We just learned how to work together, and it was so much fun. It was so much fun. I wrecked my cousin's four-wheeler into the side of one of his customers' cars. I can't remember if it was a Nova or a Camaro. I don't remember. But it was a nice car until I hit it with the four-wheeler. And my dad said, son, you're going to learn a very valuable lesson today. I said, yes, sir, what's that? After I done tore up the four-wheeler, busted up my face, and really messed up his customer's car, he said, well, you're about to learn how to do body work. And so I remember sitting out there beside my dad and working on this man's door until we got his door straight, and then we fixed his door where I caved his door in. And those are the lessons that my dad was able to teach. My mom was working, trying to make sure that we had, and Dad would work when he could. My mom was a rock star now, right? My mom was a rock star. She just worked, man. She'd find a job. She worked hard, get up early, go in early, stay late, whatever it takes. That was my mom. She was that solid rock because my dad couldn't be. And it was really unique to watch that dichotomy, because that's not the way a normal marriage works. I mean, we think, man, I'm the man. I got this covered. Well, what happens if you don't? Or are you okay when you don't? And I mean, it was really just kind of a unique way to grow up. Anyway, I say all that because that's really what shaped my work ethic. I think it also created in me a stigma, because I was very purposeful and focused on that I was not going to be poor. I was not going to be economically challenged, which I don't know that that's a good thing to say, or I don't know that that's a good outlook to have. And I think that really skewed my view of life for a very long time. And that's really, before I came to the Lord, that's what I was doing, man. I was chasing money, But
I think what I see you saying is it gave you a drive, though,
oh
that
yes,
exists to this day in some of your endeavors that you
oh
have
yeah,
going on now. Why? I think that is. I see that play out a lot of times with people who have come from poverty, that they are the type to, when they can't do something, they don't call somebody or pay somebody to do it. They figure it out.
that's right. And that's why sometimes I install my own air conditioners. That's why sometimes I just do it. It's not that I couldn't pay anybody, but even in some of my rental houses right now, I shouldn't pay anybody. You know what I mean? The numbers are tight. You go over your timeline or your budget or whatever the case may be, and you have to make concessions somewhere else. Sometimes you just do what you got to do. And I love the fact that growing up the way that I did, that's my outlook. You just got to do what you got to do. And whether that's holding a shovel and digging a trench, or whether that's installing a window or laying tile or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I mean, you just, like you said, you learn how to figure it out. Some of the most resourceful people that I've ever met are impoverished people. You ever thought about that? How resourceful does the wealthy have to be? I mean, don't get me wrong, brilliant. Most wealthy people are brilliant. But how resourceful are they when it comes to their skill set? See, their skill set's just different. I think in poverty, we hone a different skill set because we have to, which has served me great, has served me well over my 46 years. I think I'm so thankful for the skills that I have. And, it's like you said, it's just, they get polished, they get honed, and you know what you're capable of. And typically, it's not much anything I'm not willing to try to tackle anyway, you know what I mean? But then Marine Corps, and I think that probably was another.
But before we go into that, I want you to back up a little bit. Talk about work ethic real quick. Why does work ethic, why is it almost non-existent in my generation a lot of times? I wouldn't say non-existent, but less common in my generations and even the ones younger than me.
Man, So I think as parents, we want to do the best that we can for our children. And I think that's a fair assessment across the board. We want to do and supply for and provide for and care for our children better than we were cared for. Well, when does that when does that stop? You see what I'm saying? Now, don't get me wrong. My mom and dad couldn't do very much monetarily. And I grew up really quickly, and I learned how to do and all those things. My brother was in the same boat. I mean, we were only a year and a month or so apart. So, I mean, we learned how to navigate life pretty close to relatively the same time. But as we were learning how to navigate life, we knew the demand that was on us to perform. I don't know. Mom and dad couldn't provide really. They always said they wanted us to have a better life than they had. Now, I would say that your mom and dad would probably say the same. They want to make sure or ensure that you have a better life than what they have been able to do. But a better life doesn't mean more things. And man, sometimes I just feel like a better life doesn't mean lazy. A better life doesn't mean complacent. A better life doesn't mean all the things that you can amass to say is good. Where's the contentment that the Bible talks about? Or are we going to be content in what we have and what we do? I actually had that conversation with my stepdad today. Or are we going to be content with the things in our life? So for me, work ethic is a huge deal. In the Marine Corps, I was in charge of people. In the corporate world, before I came into ministry, I was in charge of hundreds of people. And it's work ethic is something that starts at home, in my opinion. Work ethic starts at the house, and it starts with watching a parent with work ethic, for one, I think. If I'm going to go out there and I'm going to get after it every day, I mean, there's no way that my daughter doesn't see that. I don't think anybody will ever look and say when I die, man, he was a lazy joker. He just wouldn't do nothing. Nobody's going to say that. But also the same thing, what are we ingraining in our children now to ensure that they're not lazy? I mean, we put everything right there at their fingertips on the laptop, on an iPad, on a cell phone. The physical demand is less now than it ever has been. Think about that as far as employment goes. The physical demand is less now than it ever has been. And the technological advances, even in the trades industries, the construction industry that you and I enjoy, think about the advances that they have had just in the tools.
Yeah, I think power tools.
Yeah. Battery-powered power tool. Man, I didn't even have to run a generator at one of my rental properties for several weeks. I mean, I just ran all my battery-powered stuff. I don't need it. I mean, I got 6 batteries, man. Just swap them out. It's fine. And then when you throw a generator out there, you're charging your batteries, and you really, what did I need? Lights. But the advances in what we have is also adding to, man, you ain't going to invite me back, the laziness and complacency of people. I mean, let me make your life easier. Easy doesn't mean better. Easy doesn't mean better. Just because your life is easier physically doesn't mean it's better spiritually or better physically. Your easy life may create terrible physical habits. And so it's everywhere, laziness and complacency. I tell my students all the time, laziness and complacency will be the downfall of people. It just will. We don't want to work. Man, I don't know how many jobs I've worked 2 or 3 jobs for years and years and years. Why? Because I like to eat, and I like to eat good. And I'm not lazy. And I want to just be able to do things. Now, but the reality is, I'm good. I'm good where I'm at. I love what I have. I love the life that the Lord has let me walk in, be a part of, the lives that I've been able to touch, the people that I've been able to just walk the journey with. Man, it's all great and beautiful and wonderful. But I think laziness and complacency starts at home. I mean, I'm just at fault with my daughter sometimes. I'm not above reproach here. I'm probably preaching to myself. We have to make sure that our own homes, our own family understands that laziness is not an option. Show me somewhere in Scripture where laziness was an option. Man, Abraham was called to go sacrifice his son. He got up early. It says in Genesis that he got up early, made ready, cut firewood, didn't even let the servants do it. He did it. He was making ready to go sacrifice his son. You talk about work ethic. Man, gonna get up early to go cut the firewood? I think I'd have been sitting there crying. I'd have been sitting there crying like, Lord, is there another way? Could we do something different here? I mean, I don't know, man. I'll get on a tangent with laziness, man. So
I love it. Let's take a quick break and then we'll hop back into it.
Yeah, brother, sounds good.
Well, and what I want to say to that is consumerism is something I have a big issue with because I know, I mean, I'm guilty of it in my own life.
I think we all are to some degree.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I see it where there's go to Amazon. There's so much junk on there to make your life easier or just whatever, make a task quicker. Yeah. It's unnecessary inventions and junk that we don't need. And we just keep on and keep on and keep on. And like with AI, I think a lot of it is good, but a lot of it makes us lazy at the same time.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I follow a few companies that are in the process of making lifelike humanoid robots to do chores at home and this, that, and other. And I see it in two different lights. On the one hand, I see it as being good because it gives many people their time back to spend with family or doing what is important to them.
Yeah, I could see it if you had a family, like a husband and wife working. You know, they're working 12 hours a day, whatever the case may be. I get it.
And that's my point with it. But on the other hand, I also can see where it can make us really lazy to where we don't do any of it.
What was it? Make your work your worship. And sometimes even our homework, when I say homework, what we do at the house, I mean, is a part of sharing in the family responsibility that we have. And I feel like if we're not all taking part in that, we lose something. We lose a dynamic of what God intended for us to have. There's a family dynamic, right? I mean, think about it. You enjoy being with your family. Now, don't get me wrong. I know your family drives you crazy. That's family. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
But nothing brings me more joy than to just sit there with Lily and Dina and just be. Whether we're watching a movie or even if we have to clean up together. Nobody wants to clean the house. Nobody wants to do that. That's not something we set out and be like, man, I can't wait to get home to clean the house today. I don't think I've ever said that in my entire life. But there are times I say, man, I can't wait to get home to spend time with my girls today. And whether it's cleaning or whether it's watching a movie, I mean, at time's important, right? I tell you guys, and you've heard me say this before, time is the most valuable asset that you have. That's it. Once you spend it, it's gone. You can't get it back. It's the most valuable asset that you have. So for me, I want to spend my time with the people that I love. Now, granted, I get that robot could help me do that. I can spend time with them even in the work. You see what I mean? I can spend time with them even in the work. And well, we don't really want them to catch on to what work ethic is. Is that the deal? Maybe Just saying, we don't want to work together. I don't know, man. I'm not big on that whole. I want some robot coming to clean my house. Now, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I don't want to clean my house. I don't want to go home and clean my house, but I do want to show my daughter what it looks like to not be lazy. And if I go home and sit on the couch and prop my feet up while some robot's running around my house, what does that say? Does it say that I'm lazy? Perception is, how's that perceived? Does your kids gonna say, "Hey, are you? Look, he just got this robot. He's not gonna do anything." I mean, But what's your thing? I mean, what's your thought on this? I mean, what are you thinking?
I'm with you. I never really looked at work as being, whether like doing the chores at home, as being something that I get to spend time with family doing. Because you're right, it's not something. Not who enjoys cleaning the house or washing the dishes.
Man, we had church range day at my house last Saturday, and there were a ton of people there from church. Well, what do you do before the church comes to your house? You clean everything up. You're thrashing, you're cleaning, trying to get everything together. And my girls, of course, were cleaning, and I just look around and I'm thinking, this is all right.
Yeah.
This is all right. They might bicker back and forth, or we might banter back and forth a little bit and aggravate each other and all of those things. But when I'm in there working right alongside of them, cleaning up the house, man, that don't bother me. And I don't think it should bother any of us, really. Now, don't get me wrong. If they're going to go sit on the couch, that's going to bother me. You know what I mean? If I'm the only one working, that's when things get kind of really touchy. And I think that's the way it is for everybody, though. I don't know, man. I think we can enjoy each other even in the midst of the daily grind things.
The mundane.
Yeah, the mundane things. So.
Yeah, I love that. Can you talk a little bit about contentment? Because with that, I find myself oftentimes becoming uncontent, and I'll give you an example real quick.
Yeah.
Is I love my truck. I have a great truck, but I really like looking on Facebook Marketplace, as most men do,
Sure.
And I find myself just looking for the good deals. Not necessarily because I'm going to buy a new truck, but I'm like, man, that's a good deal. But then I'll slowly begin to find myself, I'm like, man, I want that truck. What if I had that truck? But I know it's just going to be a cycle to where I get that one. I'm going to go back on there and look. How do I stay content with what I have?
We first off, we as males love to throw the women under the bus on this very thing, and yet we are the same way. We're the same way. They're not looking at trucks; they might be looking at a purse, but there's no difference. There's no difference except price, maybe. We're looking at a $20,000, $40,000, $70,000 vehicle. They're looking at a $300 purse, or I don't even know what a purse costs, but whatever. But what's the difference? So contentment was really difficult for me, especially young at your age. I made a ton of money. I worked in Atlanta at AAA Cooper Transportation, big business operations manager. And in my 20s, man, I was making a ton of money. Even to today's standards, I was making really good money. And it was like endless. It was like a bottomless pit. The contentment was never there. There was no contentment until I found Jesus. I'm just being honest with you. There was no contentment in anything until I found Jesus. I mean, I wasn't content with money. Growing up poor, I thought I had to make a ton of money. And I wasn't going to be content until I had money. And when I did have money, I just spent more money. When I did have money, I just still kind of this bottomless pit, And it was crazy. So contentment for me was a struggle in my younger years. And then when Dean and I lost our first child, It was hard to be content. You know, we when you think you're young and you're making a lot of money and you're making the right moves and your family's saying they're proud of you and all those things, you're thinking, man, I can be content with this. But you're not really content. I wasn't content. I tried to tell myself I was content, but there was always something else I had to buy to fill a hole, or there was always something else I had to do, or this next rung up the ladder that I had to go to, you know, driving up the corporate ladder. And when we lost our first kid, man, everything changed. And it wasn't that I was content because I was broken. I was brokenhearted and angry with God and angry and not understanding and trying to understand and do all those things. And in the midst of trying to do all those things is where I had a guy barter with me to get me to church. It was the strangest thing, man. It was crazy. I was into drag racing. Like I said, I made a lot of money, so I wasted a lot of money. And that's what drag racing will do for you. You'll waste a lot of money. And I was into drag racing, and there was a big race up in Commerce that was happening. And I was like, man, I really want to go to the drag strip. We had lost our daughter, and she lived 11 hours and 13 minutes. And it wrecked my wife and I. It just destroyed. I thought it destroyed us. It really hurt us pretty bad. And I was just looking to get away, so I was like, man, I'm gonna go to drag races. And I was calling around. Nobody could go. Everybody was tied up, all my buddies. And I called a buddy of mine that I used to work with doing heating and air. And I called him and I said, hey, I said, hey, Ben, you want to go to the drag strip with me tomorrow? He's like, man, I got a lot to do around the farm. He's a farm guy. He's got a farm and cows and all that stuff. And he says, got a lot to do around the farm tomorrow. He said, I don't know what you got. What you got going on? And I told him. He said, I tell you what, I'll make you a deal. He said, if you'll go to church with me on Sunday, I'll go to the race with you on Saturday. I was like, man, I don't want to do this. I just want to go to the drag races. And I was like, all right, fine, whatever. Yeah, I'll go to church with you on Sunday. Okay. He said, all right, let's do it. So we went and drag race Saturday. I don't even remember anything about the drag race. Don't remember anything about the drag race. Maybe I had a good time. Maybe I didn't. I don't remember any of that. What I remember is Sunday, because I'm a man of my word. Dina and I showed up, and I went to church with him on Sunday. And that Sunday changed my life. That Sunday changed my life. And it changed her life. And that's when we began to find contentment. We didn't find contentment until we found Jesus. That Sunday changed our life. That's when the Lord got a hold of me. And it was a beautiful, wonderful thing and a scary thing all at the same time. But it was from that point in meeting Christ that I began to understand, or not understand, I surely shouldn't say understand, I began to work toward what contentment really was. And it wasn't any of the monetary things or the material things or even the physical things that we think make us content. Now, don't get me wrong, all those things make us comfortable. And I think we get contentment and comfort confused. Tommy Tenney once says that we have become the cult of the comfortable. And I agree with him wholeheartedly. We are the cult of the comfortable. We want to be comfortable in our nice padded seats, in our nice couches, in our air-conditioned and heated houses. We want to be comfortable. And I think we mess those up a little bit. I don't think that we understand definitely what contentment is, being content in what we have in this life, what we do in this life, where we are in this life, the beauty of this life, the relationships. Are we content even in those in comparison to comfort? So after all that deal, went to church, man, I got saved. The wife and I ended up getting baptized a little while later. It was a beautiful thing at the same church that I was saved at, and it was all because this guy bartered with me to go to church. And it was a beautiful thing, and I still talk about that, and I'll always tell that story because that story of him being willing to put himself out and make this deal with me. He didn't want to go to the drag races. He wanted to work on the farm. But he took that step in faithfulness and said, yeah, I'll go. You're going to go to church with me. It's in that discovery, watching him, watching people of faith move in the church, move through life. That's where we really get to see what contentment really looks like. You ever thought about that? Look at the people that you look up to of faith in your life. Do you see contentment? Man, how'd they get it? Right? We want to know. Everybody wants to know how we get it. Well, you get it by walking in this faithful journey with Jesus. You get it in the midst of learning how to navigate life according to his word and his will. When I'm walking with him, contentment kind of is a byproduct of being in a rightful relationship. And when I walk with him and I talk with him and I love him and I praise him and I worship him and I do all of those things, nothing makes me happier. Nothing makes me more content. You can't out praise God. You can't out worship God. I mean, think about it. It's so beautiful to me that we are the ones that struggle in all of our brokenness and all of the brokenness of the world that we live in and all of the difficulty and struggle. And yet we still find rest. We still find relief from this world in his presence. We still find this contentment that can only be found in him. So contentment, when we look at it, I think it's really, we're seeing two things. For some people, they feel contentment is comfort. I don't think comfort and contentment are the same. And I'm content in my heart knowing who is in charge of my life. I'm content with what comes next, even when I don't know what that is, because of who I belong to. And I think that's something that's important. I don't think there is contentment without faith. I think there's comfort. I think there's lots of comfort. But this life can be totally and utterly consuming. And we give ourselves over to that a lot of times. We're going to give it all I got. How many times have you said that? I'm going to give it all I got. How many times have you been on the field playing ball or doing something and I'm going to give it all I got? We give ourselves away to such a degree to the comforts and the things that get us recognized. Oftentimes more so to the faithfulness and the contentment that is to be had in that faithfulness. That's a constant tension that we walk, right? I want to do this. God wants me to do this. We really want to meet in the middle. That's really what we want. We want God to meet us in the middle.
Compromise.
Yeah, we want compromise. But we don't serve a compromising God. You ever thought about that? He can't compromise his character. He can't compromise who he is. Isaiah 55, my ways are higher than your ways, just as the heavens are higher than earth, so are my ways higher than yours, and my thoughts higher than yours, or my thoughts higher than your thoughts. I mean, we want God to compromise with us. Lord, just meet me in the middle. But why? It's not for contentment. What's it for? It's for comfort. God, meet me in the middle. It'll be more comfortable for me. So it's part of the struggle for what I see in this life. I see that people are really caught between the tension of comfort and contentment. And I'm just like you, man. There's sometimes I'm looking, man. I'm looking at this house, man. I'd love to have that house. Or I'm looking at big apartment buildings and things like that. But I need to be content in this moment with what God's got me doing right now, right here. Now, I'm not saying don't work. I think that's important. I think we need to work, but I can't outwork God. I mean, so He's doing the heavy lifting. I just want to be obedient and submissive and show up. God, keep doing the heavy lifting because it's too heavy for me. Right? He said, take my yoke upon you. Take my yoke upon you. But the burden's light. Man knows Lord knows I can't carry what He's carrying. So I don't know, man. Contentment's.
I think that's the key word, submission.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to that, you talked about how we want to meet Jesus in the middle. Instead of giving ourselves fully over to Him, being fully submissive, we want Him to. Okay, well, I'll give this. I'll let go of this, but you got to meet me here. But I'm not. That's it. I'm not going any farther. Instead of diving in wholeheartedly.
Yeah. We love to barter with Jesus. We want to bargain. We want to bargain with Jesus, right? I remember the first time, the first time I ever drank, and I remember getting so sick, man. I was so sick, and I remember praying. I was a believer, but I didn't know Him. How about that? All right. So my mom and dad said, "Yeah, Jesus is real." Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. All right. So I didn't really know Jesus, but I remember sitting in there and just being so sick after drinking and thinking, I remember saying, Lord, if you take this away from me, I will never drink this again. And you notice what I said, right? I'll never drink this again. Not alcohol. Whatever. I was very specific in what I said. I'm never going to drink this again. Now, I haven't. In all my years, I've never drank that again. But think about it. I was just bartering with God. Lord, let's make a deal, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it was. I was just trying to make a deal so I could get relief. Lord, meet me in the middle and just let's meet with this one little piece. I mean, and I think we all try to be sly like that to some degree, if I'm being honest.
It's like we think that He's not going to recognize. like we can use some fancy speech or like the fine print.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He didn't look at the contract. I mean, I don't know, man. We act like God is dumb. And I really hate to even say that in the same kind of, but we do. We act like He just doesn't know anything. The creator of the universe that created you and I, he just doesn't get it. He doesn't understand me. What? That doesn't even make any sense. But we try to treat Him like that, right? We try to treat Him like, God, there's no way you know what I just did. Bro, are you serious? We're talking about God. So, I don't know. I think it's a wonderful thing to be able to sit down like this and just have a conversation and say, hey, look, we treat God like He's ignorant to the things that run through your mind and through your heart. We treat God like He doesn't understand. We treat God as if He could not possibly, what was it, the skit guys, God's Chisel, that skit that they did. How could you possibly say that one of my children, one of my created, that I created, I wouldn't understand what they were going through? I mean, think about that. God created every one of us. How could He not understand? And then His Son came here and just paid it all, lived a life that we foul up every day, And he did it perfectly. Perfectly. And he doesn't understand the temptation. He doesn't understand the difficulty. He doesn't understand that we're scrolling and see this truck. And it's like, man, that's that one right there, man. I really need that one. And you don't. You need it like a hole in the head, really. It's hard to be content with material things. It's hard. And I think we have to check ourselves sometimes. And do I need a new truck? No, I don't need a new truck. Do I need? Look, man, I want a skid steer and a Mini X so bad. Do I need them? I could probably try to figure out how to justify it, but do I need it? No. I want it. Is that me being content, not content? Is that just make my life easier, more comfortable? Is that a comfort thing? Or is it a flex? Is it something that I just want to say that I own? I mean, we have to ask ourselves all these questions. Is it just, I just want to be a little boastful? I mean, if you're using it every day, that's one thing. Man, I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher and I'm a pastor. I'm not using this thing every day. Now, it'd be different if that's all I did. I could understand it. You have to have tools to work with. 100% agree. I ain't knocking that. And I'm that tool guy. I'm a tool snob when it comes to stuff like that. Yeah, I get it. But here we are. Content, comfort. Which one is it? What do you think?
I agree with you 100%. I mean, it's such. I would say the United States is riddled with this. I know it's a world issue.
Yeah.
But it's become such an issue even in our own country. We've manufactured it. We've shown other countries this is what you need. Everyone needs what we have. Yeah.
Man, what was that? I read something in it was Tommy Tenney's book, God Chasers, a long time ago. Man, I don't know. And he was in another country, and he said he was sitting down with a pastor, and he was talking to him, and the country was in such poverty. I mean, just impoverished. And he said he sat there, and he told the pastor, he said, I pray for you and your country in your poverty. I pray for your poverty. He said, the preacher stopped him, and he says, oh, no, you don't understand. We pray for you and your wealth. The poverty is not the problem. It's the wealth that we have that has created the problem. And he's saying, we're not the ones that need to be prayed for, buddy. It's you. He pretty much pointed the finger and said, hey, our poverty keeps us grounded in our faith. We don't have anything else to cling to. But you cling to your comfort. You cling to your ease of life. You cling to those creature comforts. You cling to those things. And that's what the pastor was telling him. It was pretty eye-opening, really.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the truth.
Yeah. We don't like to look at it that way, though, because we look at what we have and we're like, man, we worked so hard to get it. We worked so hard to get here to where we're at now, and I don't want to give up these good things. Sometimes we have to ask ourselves just how good they are, though, I guess.
But what is wealth? Like to us, I would say wealth is more things, more possessions, more zeros in your bank account.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even the thing that you hear now, people want to say, I'm financially independent or I'm financially free. I mean, I get it. I get it. All of us dream of that. All of us, I don't want to have to ever worry about a bill again. Yeah, I want to be financially independent, but I think we all want that. But I think, I don't think everybody was intended to have it. And I know it sounds really bad. I may not be intended to have it. And I have to be okay with that. I have to be content with that. And I think that's where we kind of get to. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some wealthy people out there, and man, I'm happy for them, and I think it's great. And there's some beautiful, wonderful people out there doing incredible things to help other people with their money. That's phenomenal, and I think it's praiseworthy to the Lord, not to them, of course. But you know what I'm saying. They should be applauded for it, man. Great job, way to be a servant, way to be a steward of your resources. Yes, but was everybody in the Bible rich? Was everybody wealthy? No. I mean, look, Jesus, the rich young ruler wanted to come and go with Jesus. He said, "What must I do?" Right? And what did Jesus tell him? Sell all your things and follow me. And what did it say? It said he was deeply grieved. He was brokenhearted because those things was his identity. What is your identity? And I think that's where the real wealth and riches are, is in our identity. My identity in Christ Jesus, whom I belong to. Like Alex says it all the time, all you need to know about me is to whom I belong. And that's really important because that's true wealth. That's the kind of wealth that ain't none of us going to ever make. He says, moths are going to destroy, vermin are going to eat. I mean, you're not going to have any of these things. The wealth is really in this eternal promise that Christ gives us. And, the rich young ruler, he was discouraged. He was brokenhearted. He was grieved. That's us. That's us. I mean, really, think about it. If Jesus told you today, I don't want you to make any more money. I don't want you to buy anything else. I don't want you to do anything else to make yourself more wealthy. How would you feel? I would be kind of upset. I would be upset. Why? Because we want to be wealthy. Because we have the mindset of building wealth. And is it the consumer culture that has created the mindset of building wealth? Or has it always been? Well, clearly it was in the Bible as well. There were rich young rulers. There were wealthy people. I mean, we like to blame everything on today's age, but are we really going to be able to do that? We look at Scripture. There were rich people in Scripture. So, I mean, think about it. Before Job and his whole deal, he was a pretty rich man. Solomon. I mean, we can go through Scripture and name several, but what about this? What if we see our value, infinite worth, the book of Mark, I want to say it's Mark chapter 8. I might be wrong. Old file cabinet don't work like it used to. But it says every life is of infinite worth. Infinite worth. We're of infinite value. We're already rich. You were created rich. You were created of infinite value. There's nothing else in this world more valuable than you. And yet we invest our time into everything else but us. You ever thought about that? Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to lock up 2 houses under contract, and that's really where my focus has been. And am I investing in the people in my life? Remember, I said the most valuable asset you have is your time. The most valuable investment you'll ever make will be in people. Am I investing in people? The most valuable thing that God created? Or am I investing in things that are just going to be destroyed one day? And I think that's a fine line to walk because here we are. So do you want to not get paid for the next couple months, Levi?
Absolutely not.
That's exactly right.
No.
I mean, I want to get paid.
Yeah.
I want to make money. So we have to walk a fine line. And that's where that contentment comes in. Am I content now with what I have? Am I going to be content with what God is providing in the future? Or am I so, I don't want to say greedy, but am I so just determined to do it my way that what God's doing is not enough? That's a tough question. I think I think that's something that we all struggle with, really. And you talking about looking on Facebook and looking at trucks and all that stuff. I mean, I think it's the same for everybody, and that's an internal battle that we're gonna face.
Everybody has that thing, is what you're saying.
I think so. Yeah, I had a really good friend of mine that he's a really wealthy guy. He'd done really well and just done really well for himself, and money came easy, and he always had plenty of money, and he always said, "Man, I'd be perfectly fine without money. I don't. If I didn't have to have money to live, I just wouldn't want nothing to do with money." And he said that for a long time. And then the Lord did something really cool in his life after I met him. The Lord did something. The Lord laid it on his heart to give his company away. He gave his whole company away. All his money, all his income, he gave it all away. And then he fell on some pretty tough times. And he said, "Man," he said, "I didn't never care anything about money until I didn't have any." He said, "I never cared anything about money until I didn't have any." He said, "But not having money is one of the scariest things that I've ever endured." He said, "It's just one of the scariest things that I've ever endured." And it's kind of like the Job story, really. It's really kind of unique. And he really, prayer, fasting, really just dove in, drawing near to God in the midst of all of this, because it is scary. Not having money's scary, man. I mean, think about it. If you had, your insurance due on your truck and you hadn't worked in 2 weeks, that's kind of nerve wracking, ain't it? I mean, you just, hey, man, that's, I mean, and he's just gave all his money away. And then a fuel pump went out in his truck. His truck started acting up. He started having some trouble. Put a new fuel pump in the truck. Fuel pump's like $400 or $500, And we did it at his house right there so we could get it done, as cheap as possible. I'm over there helping him. We're doing all this stuff. And he told me, he said, "Man," he said, "I always used to tell people I didn't care nothing about money." He said, "Right now I care more about money than I ever have." He said, "I didn't know I cared so much about money. That's all I ever talked about was money." He said, "But I didn't realize it because I had money." And he said, "Now," "now I see." I see. He said, "God has really shown me that I was so focused on money that's why I said I didn't care about money, that I didn't want anything to do with money." He said, "I was so focused on it." He said, "I was hyper focused on it." Really cool story. A couple years later, the Lord has really blessed him and gave him his money back, like twofold what he had. It was really a phenomenal story. I won't name his name because I just don't feel like that's the right thing to do. But it was really a beautiful thing, and I had an opportunity to minister to him and be a pastoral influence in the midst of all of this. And it was tough on him, man. It was heartbreaking and it was rough. But God really rewarded him for his faithfulness, even in all of that. Now he has one heck of a testimony to tell about it. Now it's a really cool story. I wonder if I could talk him into coming to see you one day and
Yeah.
Man, it would be a cool story. It
I
would be a
love
cool
that.
story.
I love that. If he's willing, I'd love to interview him.
Man, I'm sure he's willing now. I'm just not going to put his name out there, but I'm sure he's willing because, man, the Lord has really just got a hold of his life and just done some beautiful, beautiful work. And when I say beautiful work, just has really just set him on fire, man. It's been really cool to sit back and see.
Yeah, you just got that front row seat to
Oh
watch
man,
it all.
it was so cool, man. So cool. Yeah, it really was. And And he apologized to me. He's like, man, I can't believe he said, man, I'm so sorry. I always used to do this and that. I said, no, man, it's good. You're fine. This is living and learning. That's what we do. And
Part of life.
that's
Yeah.
right. And I think it's important that we go through those trials and tribulations. I've said for years that the trials and tribulations that we face, God uses to mold us into and to shape us into who He created us to be, not who we wanted to be. And I think that's where we also have to find some contentment in the shape that He's making us. If you look at Jeremiah 18, He is the potter, we are the clay, and when we become misshapen, He doesn't discard us and throw us away. He just applies pressure to mold us into something beautiful. And I think that's really where I bring that into play, because are we going to be content in the shaping and the difficulty and the hurt as we are when we're comfortable? And most of us are going to say, no, I'm not content with the pain. The pain sucks. I don't want to do that. That's just not good for me. So, I mean, that's kind of one of those things that we all go through, like you said, that we're all going to face, and how we navigate it is kind of different.
Yeah. Well, let's transition now back to kind of your story.
All right, yeah, me.
Tell me about after you graduated high school. Where'd you go from there?
Man, I graduated June the 4th, 1998. I shipped out for the Marine Corps June the 8th of 1998. I had already been signed up in the Marine Corps a year before I even got to leave. I got my dad to sign for me when I was 17. I wasn't old enough to sign yet. And they allowed a delayed entry program for a year. And I got my dad to sign. My dad always wanted to be a Marine. And like I said, my dad was he's kind of my hero. And he always wanted to be a Marine, but because he was a diabetic, he couldn't go in the military. They wouldn't have him. And even when they were, drafting and doing all those things, they didn't even entertain because of his condition. So I kind of went for him, but I went for me. I really wanted to get away from here for a minute and just kind of figure out what life looked like on my own. And man, boot camp was really quick to determine your work ethic in boot camp. And I ended up being a squad leader pretty quickly because of work ethic and things like that. It really wasn't because I was a phenomenal athlete or anything like that, because I'm not. But, you stand out, and you don't mean to. And the one thing that you don't want to do is stand out. But I got volunteered and voluntold, and that was where I ended up, and leading a second squad in boot camp, and it was phenomenal. It was hard, it was difficult, it was hot. If that's what hell feels like, I don't ever even want to get close. Parris Island, South Carolina was like 107 degrees. It was smoking hot in June and July. It was crazy. So went there, Parris Island, graduated from boot camp, come home 10 days, got engaged. Dina was my high school sweetheart. So I dated her my junior and senior year, and then I shipped out, come home for 10 days. We got engaged, and then I left again. Not the best engagement, just saying. But left again, went back and did MCT, Marine Combat Training, then got into school, went to school. They call it AMOC Training School for mechanics. My dad was a mechanic, so mechanics just kind of seemed to be the right fit. Did that, worked on that for a couple of years. Had a couple of close calls, standby for a couple of different deployments and stuff, but I never went anywhere. It was the craziest thing. I never went anywhere. I stayed on the East Coast the whole time. I was attached at Dobbins Air Force Base for several months because they needed some folks up there to work in their office and on their tugs. So it was just, I was all over the East Coast, man. And when I come back home, I got out of the Marine Corps on a Friday, and I was working at AAA Cooper Transportation on Monday. I drove home and went to work. My dad had kidney dialysis 3 days a week, so I took a job at night so I could take him back and forth to kidney dialysis because he had gotten that sick. I come home on what they called a hardship discharge. My dad was in such bad shape, and my brother was married with children, and my mom was working that nobody could take care of my dad. So I come home to take care of Dad and take him to dialysis. Really was my main deal. I'd pick him up 3 days a week and take him to dialysis, and when I dropped him off at dialysis, I'd go to Atlanta and go to work. So that was the Marine Corps. I had a lot of fun in the Marine Corps. It was good. It fit me, suited me well. I liked the regiment. It was all right. It was all right. Made a lot of good friends and a lot of good connections and a lot of good training, and it really helps shape your outlook on life a bit when you understand what the sacrifices are too. So there, business in Atlanta.
Where did marriage fall in?
Oh man, marriage was. I worked in Atlanta we got married in 2000, November the 4th of 2000. So yeah, we just celebrated 25 years.
Congratulations.
So that was pretty awesome. Yeah, November 4th of 2000, and I hadn't been home. Like I said, I hadn't been home about a year. I've been home about a year because I got home after 2 years. It was, like I said, the hardship discharge. And my mom was just really, she didn't want me to go back. I mean, she was heartbroken. I was heartbroken. I don't know, man. I just didn't go back. I could have went back. They gave me an open opportunity to go back, but I didn't. Stayed home, went to work, stayed at the job I took when I took the job to help Dad out. And now my wife, her dad was working up there at the company that I took the job at, and man, he worked there for several years. I worked there for 11 years, but we got married in 2000, and then she come to work up there for a little while, and just moved up the ranks for the company pretty quickly. Lead man, supervisor, operations manager, and just.
What'd y'all do there?
We're a trucking company, shipping LTLs. Is a freight carrier. They'd pick it up in the city. They'd pick up, say, Sony. They'd go to Sony and pick up DVD players, TVs, Sony PlayStations, whatever. They'd pick all that electronic stuff up, bring it back. We'd distribute it out to different states. So we'd bring it in from the city in Atlanta, and then we would, say, send it to Montgomery, Asheville, North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina, Orlando, Florida, whatever, Tampa, Florida, all over the United States. We would disperse it out on other trailers and load them out, and then we'd take trucks. They had truck drivers, and they would hook up to them and take them to the next station, and then they would put them out in the city. So they'd break them down. So we're just loading trailers, really, and moving freight. That's how all the stuff that you get, that's how it moves. The vast majority of it moves on a tractor trailer. So did that for 11 years until, Dean and I lost one child. Right after a year later, lost another. And then almost a year later, a third. So we lost 3 children back to back to back. And at least in the midst of that, I had gotten saved and was baptized. We were both baptized on the same day, which is now Lily's birthday, by the way. It's kind of wild. Just how God works, how God smiles sometimes, or how God makes me smile sometimes. And, it's just life started happening. We had Lily. Lily was born in 2006, and she was almost 2. And we went to the Concord Jubilee, and I met a guy over there, and we were at this old church. I'm not going to name any names, but we were at this old church, and they just really didn't have a great program for young people. I was a young Christian and on fire for the Lord, and had no idea what to do with that and where to put it and how I was supposed to work into being a Christian, and it was really chaotic in my mind, and it was I needed an outlet for it. I needed to figure out what that was supposed to look like, what I was supposed to be doing to tell other people about Jesus. And didn't have a young adult group really. So Dean and I were looking for a young adult group. We had Lily, who was, a baby, and we were just looking for some young people to kind of walk the journey with. And met a guy at Concord Jubilee, and he was giving out water and telling us about the church, and we went over and visited, and we went back, and we took a week or two off to kind of pray through what that was supposed to look like. And then the next week we showed up, and we brought our family. And when I say we brought our family, I brought like my mom and my brothers, we brought the family. And then, man, I've been there ever since. We've been there and at Life Springs for all that time, because that's where I felt that God led us and brought us to. It was really a unique experience. And the pastor, we hadn't been there long, and he asked if we'd go on a mission trip with him. And I said, man, I'm not going anywhere without my daughter. He said, well, bring her with you. I said, for real? He's like, yeah. So, she wasn't even 2 years old. I had her up in the mountains of Asheville, North Carolina. And we were doing some mission work on a battered women's shelter up there. I'll never forget it. And that's when I really got my call to ministry. It wasn't in the mission work. It was with the worship from the students that night. So we come in from doing mission work. We drove straight up, did some mission work all day long, worked all day long, and then we ate and then had worship. Well, we're sitting on the side of the mountain in Asheville, and we're overlooking just this beautiful sunset and all of these things. And I was thinking, man, that's really beautiful. But what was beautiful is when these students began to worship the Lord. And it was student-led. All of it was student-led, and it was wonderful. And I watched those students praising God in a way that I was so afraid to do. I watched those students just let go and really just live into what the Holy Spirit was working in their life. And I knew how afraid I was of doing that. And man, God just set me on fire. It was the craziest thing. In that moment, I knew that God was calling me to do something with students. And that's really how I got there. I knew God was calling me to do something with students. And after that trip, what was funny is on the way up that trip, the pastor asked if my wife and I would be willing to work with the youth for a little while. And I really wasn't down with it. I'm just being honest with you. I was like, she said, oh, yeah, sure. And I was like, no. We're sitting in the back seat, and I'm trying to tell Dina no, I don't want to work with youth. No. And she's like, yeah, I'm sure we can fill in. We'll figure it out. She was supposed to be the one working with youth, just so we're clear. I never intended for it to be me. Now, I'm sure God had other intentions, as we can see, but I never had I had no desire to be a youth minister. And, but after that moment on the mountain and the nights that preceded, all I could think about was being with those kids. I mean, all I could think about. I went to work, man. I felt so guilty. I'd go to work. I mean, you have to understand, it was a $15 million facility that they built. They built out my office how I wanted it. I mean, they were really good to me. And I'm a loyal person, so the company was great to me and was phenomenal to me and really treated me well, and they were an incredible company. But I would go to work and I would shut my door on my office, and I would tell my secretary I didn't want to see anybody. And I would be in there trying to figure out what I wanted to do with these kids. And I felt so guilty. I'm like, I'm not doing this company right. I'm not doing the right thing by them. They've been so good to me. And then things started changing in the company, and doors started closing for me. And it became really evident as I began to look that God was beginning to reshape my trajectory, that he was closing doors in one aspect of my life. And then, I'm talking to the pastor, and he's like, I'd met with him and we'd talked, and he's like, man, what would it take for you to come be the youth pastor? He said, how much money would you need to live? And I'm like, man, I'm up here making so much money. This is ridiculous. It doesn't even make sense. You can't compete with that. And that was what I really wanted to say. I said, let me run the numbers. And so I figured up everything I had in my savings. I figured up everything I had in my retirement account. I figured up everything that I had put away to this point. And I called him and I gave him a number that is ludicrous. I said, I need about $21,000 a year. He said, done. He said, give me a few minutes. He made a phone call and called me back. He says, done. You start in May. I said, so, like, for real? He said, yeah. He said, are you going to be able to survive? I said, well, we'll see. I think I can. So I took like not including bonuses, about a $60,000 a year pay cut to go to youth ministry. And it doesn't even make sense. The math does not math. So I took everything I had and we jumped into youth ministry. I put in my 2-week notice. And what was really cool is the guy I worked with was a really godly man, the terminal manager. So I had one boss. He was a terminal manager, a really godly guy. He was a really unique guy, just phenomenal brother in Christ. And his name was Patrick Harris, phenomenal guy. And I go in there and I put my 2-week notice. I said, look, this is my 2-week notice. So I just want you to have it. He said, whoa, hold on a minute. You ain't walking out that door. He said, you sit down right here. We had worked together for long enough that he knew me. He knew my heart and how dedicated and loyal I was. And he said, what's going on with you? And I told him, I said, look, man, I'm in here. I'm stealing time every day. I feel guilty. I can't think about doing anything but working with these kids. I said, you need to read the notice. And he read the notice. He made me sit in there while he read my notice. I didn't get to just leave, which is really uncomfortable, by the way. And he said, I was fully prepared to argue with you about staying. He said, but how am I supposed to argue with God? I said, that's what I've been trying to do for several weeks, and it just ain't working out. I can't argue with him either. And he said, man, I was fully committed to just figuring it out. He said, but no, man, if this is what you feel like you're called to do, he said, the best of luck to you. He said, you got to go. And that's how it went. It was a beautiful thing. Exit. Everybody was amicable. It was wonderful. And then it was full-time into ministry. Lily was doing pre-K at Life Spring, so I was up there every day. I got to be a stay-at-home dad for a couple of years, man. It was wild. I got to be a stay-at-home dad, and I used every bit of the resources that we had, and it really did keep us afloat for about 3 years. It was wild. Never went hungry. Lights never were out, and bills got paid, and I have no idea how. Insurance checks would show up in the mail that I know I don't overpay insurance. I can't stand paying insurance. And they'd say, oh, Mr. Moore, you had an overpayment. I'm like, ma'am, if I cash this check, are you sure? Yeah, it's your check. I said, ma'am, if I cash this check, you'll never get this money back. I'm just trying to make that clear to you right now. It's not our money, Mr. Moore. You overpaid. Okay, all right. And I would cash the check. It would be what we needed. I mean, it was God's provision in the midst of our faithfulness and our submissiveness is just unreal. And that's how it was. And it was like that every turn. It was wonderful, beautiful. And I mean, I had a guy walk up to me one Sunday morning, man. I was $108 short on my light bill. $108 short. I was trying to figure out what I could do, what I could sell, how I could, come up with $108. We're prideful people, man. Me too, right? I ain't asking nobody for any money. But I walk into church and I'm talking to some folks, and one of my buddies, he walks up to me. And I only do the bills, so Dina had no idea. She had no idea what we needed. I don't stress her out with that kind of stuff. I just handle business and do what I got to do. And he walks up to me and he says, "Hey, man, the Lord woke me up in the middle of the night and told me to give you this." I was like, "Okay." And I was like, "No, man, I'm good." He said, "Oh, no. The Lord did not negotiate with me. He told me to give you this, and I don't care what you do with it, but I'm going to do what the Lord told me to do." He said, "So here's this check." You know what the check was for? $108. How? 108. The Lord just woke you up and said, "Hey, write the man a check for $108. No, man. It don't happen. Nobody knew. It was in my head. That was it. It was in my prayers. It was in my head. It was me trying to figure it out. And God saying, "Look, dummy, I told you I got this. I told you I got it." And here I was trying to turn the man away. I'm like, "No, man, I'm good." He's like, "Oh, no, you ain't." He said, "You ain't stealing my blessing." He woke me up and said, "Get this to you, and I'm going to give it to you." $108. I can't even make that up, man. It's just the craziest things. But that was the life that I lived into, the life of obedience. And I never went without or anything like that. And the next thing you know, school's calling. I was going up there, hanging out with the school and doing all those things with school for my youth. I went up and would go sit and eat lunch with them and just hang out with them. And they were like, "You need to start subbing, at least make some money all the time you spend up here." So I started subbing a little bit. And then we were on spring break in Panama City, and I always took the kids down there. We were working with a homeless shelter down there that year, and the school system called me and said, "Hey, you want a job?" I said, "Oh, I got a job." They said, "No, we'd like to hire you full time." I said, "Doing what?" And they said, "Working with high risk teenagers." That kind of sounds like my jam. I said, "Let me pray about it and I'll get back with you." They didn't really know how to take that. So when I responded with, "Well, let me pray about it," I said, "Give me a week to pray about it and I'll call you when I get home." Okay. All right, sounds good. That was the conversation. It was really awkward. But I took the job. I felt at peace about it. And I got to work with some really high-risk teenagers. It was really kind of a unique deal. And then that's how I kind of got into the school system. I finished up another degree and been teaching ever since. I mean, it's been the craziest ride. And I've been able to minister to kids that have lost and had difficulty and struggle. And I mean, I impact students there that I don't get to impact in a church setting. I get to live it out. They get to see what a real life broken person looks like when they try to live out a life with Jesus. So that's kind of how we got here. It's kind of how we got here.
And those high risk students, what does that mean exactly?
So high risk of dropout, high risk of volatile home situations, things like that, broken families, broken homes, really the high risk students for quitting school, dropping out of school, getting into trouble, making the wrong choices kind of thing. And it was a unique opportunity, and it was pretty awesome, really. Got to learn a lot about broken students. We take that for granted a lot. I know that some of them. What's the old adage? Don't judge them till you walked a mile in their shoes, kind of thing. If people really understood some of the places that these students are coming from, we take it for granted because our home life is amicable and it's hospitable and it's comfortable and it's loving and nurturing. But that's not everybody's home environment. And we take it for granted because we just assume that everybody has it like us. There was never a time that even in our poverty that my home was not amicable and loving and affectionate, and there was never a time that it wasn't comfortable, that I was uncomfortable in my own home. I mean, I think about it. It doesn't take wealth or anything else to do those things. It takes love. It's love and affection and just being there for each other. But that's not necessarily the case for every kid. And unfortunately, we would love to think it is, but it's just not. We like to live in our own little world when it comes to stuff like that. We don't want to see the ugly. And there's a lot of ugly out there.
I know that's something I've taken for granted is my upbringing and my home life because being homeschooled, you are sheltered from a lot of stuff. I
Sure.
mean, there's a stereotype around it, but it's true. I mean, not all are weird, but I think there's something special to being sheltered to a degree, and with that, you don't get to see all the poverty that some people live in or the brokenness that they live in. And I think now that I'm an adult and that I'm working, I see that more.
Oh, yeah.
And it I reflect on my time growing up and how blessed I was to have the life that I did.
As you should. I mean, and that's me. Don't get me wrong. We lived in poverty, but man, my house was full of love. My house was full of love. It might not have been full of other things. It might not have been full of material things, but man, we had fun and we loved each other and we spent time together and we were devoted to each other. And that some of the kids I get to, or I have gotten to experience, if that's not their home. That's really kind of sad, man, really. And that's one of the reasons that I always tell people good morning. One of the reasons that I always appreciate them and I strive to help them understand that they are cared for. And I mean, my guys leave my classroom every day, and I got a ton of guys in my class right now with this construction class. So they're just, all right, Mr. Moore, have a good day. I tell them that every day. So now they're telling me, they're trying to beat me to the punch. See, you have this reciprocated relationship to where they know I'm invested. And even in their ignorance, now don't get me wrong, the teenager's going to be dumb. They're just going to do dumb stuff. And not because they're unintelligent, it's because they're teenagers and their mind is scrambled and they're trying to figure it all out. I get it. I'm not mad. But I do try to push them for some accountability. I push them to be better. I push them to live up to the expectation because the world is really setting them a pretty low bar, if I'm being honest. It's a pretty low bar. And I think the Bible sets us a much higher bar. And it's not in like the things that you and I have talked about, wealth and all that other stuff. It's in service and in stewardship and in love and, charity with your neighbor and just being gracious and all of those things. That's what we can learn how to do that makes us live a more rich life. So some of those kids, man, they're broken. Their home's broken. They come from broken families. And I'm not saying that that's all what, I understand broken families and those mixed family dynamics and all of those things. But, and some of those kids just don't know what it feels like to be loved. And that's one of the saddest things to me, to know that there are some students out there that the most love they may get may be from me in a class period. You know what I mean? And that's why I've told. I mean, they're like, why do you hug these kids? If the kid needs a hug, I'm gonna give him a hug. Why? What do you mean, why? Everybody wants to be loved, man. Everybody wants to be loved, and they want to be appreciated. I mean, come on. One day they'll probably fire me for hugging a kid, I guess. I mean, that's okay, whatever. It's all right. I mean, I'm just going to do what Jesus wants me to do, man. And he says to love. He says to love your neighbor as you love yourself. If you ain't willing to hug that kid, you should be willing to hug yourself. And like, do you hug all of them? I hug all that wants a hug. I'm not trying to do nothing crazy. I ain't going out there seeking them out. But I mean, and that's just what's so funny. Noah forever was so unaffectionate. But the more time that I invested in him, he's a grown man. Still gives me a hug every time he sees me. Why? Because he loves me and he appreciates me, and I appreciate him and I love him. Why does he give me a hug? Because he's safe. He feels confident that my affection for him is on that level. I mean, would you hug Jesus if you saw him? I'm going to fall at his feet, right? But might be, I don't have no hair to clean them. Maybe I clean his feet with my beard, with my tears, but I mean, I don't have any hair, so I just have to kind of roll a little different than Mary did. But I'm just saying,
Wow.
But for real, I want to hug him. I want to hug Jesus. Why? Because that's how we show affection. That's how we show. When I hug my wife, that's important. Think about when you hug Ansley. When you're telling her bye, don't you give her a long hug bye? Why? Because you love her, and that's important. And you want her to know that you care. An embrace like that is something that's really important. And it's always been in my mind that, what if some of these kids have never been hugged like it's important? Wrecks my heart, man, so I struggle. So, I mean, your girlfriend's one of them, man. She's brokenhearted one day, and I couldn't take it. I had to love on her. I had to ask her if she was okay. I had to know. I think that's just the way God works. God gives you spiritual eyes to see, and to be able to see the brokenness sometimes. And I think it's our responsibility and our obedience and submission to His Spirit to act on that, and to say, hey, are you okay? That changed her life, and it changed mine. This is not a one-sided thing either. It changed mine. So just that one thing. I still have the letter that she wrote for me from FFA banquet when we finished up the year. Man, that letter almost brought me to tears. It's powerful. And those are the things that help you understand when you're doing something like I'm doing, which is bivocational. Helps you understand that your ministry is not just happening in the walls of the church, that your ministry is everywhere, and that ministry is even when you don't feel like it's effective, that it's having an effect on people. Because sometimes you walk this journey, man, you walk this life, and you're like, man, well, how effective am I really? Lord, what are you even doing with me right now? And you know, sometimes we don't know what that effect looks like until somebody tells us. So, yeah, man. So that's where I'm at. School. That's what I do. I love on these kids, and I teach them skills like you and I enjoy. You know, building things. Now I'm teaching heavy equipment, so they're learning how to operate excavators and dozers and all that kind of stuff. So they're really loving that stuff.
That's cool.
So yeah.
Well, maybe you'll get a real one soon to where they can.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe I get a real one. I'm not gonna get my hopes up.
Well, maybe there's your excuse to buy it. It's for the kids.
It's for the kids. No, I don't think that's gonna be quite truthful. But yeah, man, I don't know. Life is good, and when we really figure out what we're living life for, it sure just make it a lot better. a lot better.
Well, kind of wrapping this episode up here, what's one piece of advice you would leave with those listening, just kind of based off of these conversations we've had today?
Embrace what God has used in your life to shape you. The journey is important. The journey is how we understand, or how we really are shaped into what God wants us to be. It's not just the trials and tribulations, the whole journey. The blessing of meeting people, the hurt of loss, the difficulty of new things, or just learning. And I would say really embrace the journey that God's got you on, because every bit of it's being used to make you the better version. Let me rephrase that: the best version of yourself. God has this plan for your life, and everybody will jump to Jeremiah, but God has this plan for your life, and that's great. And I think we get to choose a lot of the avenues that we take. And I don't think some of them are good, some of them are better, but there's one that's the very best. And I think God uses all those other things to get you to the very best. And for me, just find the joy in the journey. Be content in the shaping and the molding and the hurt and the pain and all of those things. And give Him glory on the other side, because when it's all said and done, how I respond to His working in my life is of the utmost importance. And when God's shaping you and it's uncomfortable, your response, and that's important. So I look at it as a whole, man. I really look at it as a whole. As, all right, God, this is really uncomfortable. You're doing something here. I might not know exactly what it is, and Lord, I'm probably dumb, and I really don't realize what it is right now. But I know that whatever you're doing at that potter's wheel, whatever you're shaping in me right now, you said you were going to make it beautiful. I trust Him. Make it beautiful. And we learn through those bumps and those shapings and all of those things. And I think it's important, because we got to share that with everybody else. Well, I remember here in my life that I had to endure this thing. And I thought it was the worst thing ever. And I see how God used that thing to prepare me for this, to what I'm doing in this moment. And without that, I wouldn't be here. And I think we take that for granted a lot. So my advice is really to embrace that, to embrace the journey, all the stuff in between, the hurt, the pain, the happiness, the tears, the laughter. Embrace it all. Embrace it all. And I think embracing it all makes us more content anyway. So that's my advice to you.
That's the key.
Yeah. I think, hey man, I don't know, man. We have a good life. I think we got a lot to be happy about, a lot to be just joyful about. I'm content with it, man. It's a beautiful thing to just be able to serve alongside of people, serve alongside of the Lord for the kingdom, and just be a part of it. We get to do it today, right now. Pretty exciting stuff. That's the way I look at it. That's me anyway, man. That's what you get.
Well, Shane, thank you for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, man, it's been fun. It's been fun. Just chit-chatting.
Yeah. We'll have you on again, and we'll talk real estate next time.
Hey, man, it's all good, bro. We're good. We'll talk about whatever.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, man. I enjoyed it.